poetry.
I am the living experience. I am the lifelong proof. Color me the poetry of nothing but the truth.
Color me a love child lost in the promised land. I am a poet.
Hi, I'm poet Danny Queen. Welcome to Color Me Poetry. And today we're looking forward to a very exciting show, a different show as always. And I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest in the person of Brenda Bunting. And she's an educator, she's a poet, and she's a spoken word artist. Welcome, Brenda. Welcome to Color Me Poetry, sister. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, Danny.
I'm happy to have you. We met at a mutual friend's house back in December.
That's correct.
Yeah, our good friend Diane.
Yes.
And I've known Diane for many years. She's used to be with me on Color Me Poetry back at Bowie State University, because I'm an alumni at Bowie State University. How did you become a poet? Did poetry choose you, or you chose poetry? How did it go?
It was a combination of both. And I began writing when I was 12, writing poems.
12 years old?
Yes.
Wow.
And I was a closet poet for many years until I decided to major in English at the University of Kentucky. I was very shy.
University
and,
of Kentucky?
I
Wow.
showed my instructors my poetry, and they were like, you have a gift and a talent for writing. And so that's what I've continued to do.
Did you get encouragement from family at home and relatives?
Yeah, I showed my mom a poem that I wrote probably when I was maybe about 14. And she said, "Who wrote this?" And I said, "I did."
Wow.
And she was like, "This is amazing." And I thought, well, you're my mom. You're supposed to say that.
Well, yeah, your mom would say that anyway. Even if it's the worst she ever seen, she'd tell you, well, it's my
That's
daughter.
so good. But
Yeah.
that gave me the encouragement to start showing other people. And I always would get the same response. It was, very encouraging. And, they were always.
So you always had this thing for words?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe it's a Gemini thing. I don't know. They do. Geminis rule the house of communication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So
all right.
they really do have a thing for words.
Yeah. Well, I remember in 10th grade, I went to Neptune Senior High School in New Jersey. And, before that time, it was always the Shakespearean sonnets and, just very traditional
Oh, you did Shakespeare?
poetry. No,
You studied
I'm talking
Shakespeare?
about what I learned in school. That's the kind of poetry I was exposed to. And then in 10th grade in English class, the instructor read We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks.
Oh, yes, one of my favorite.
And when I heard that poem,
Yes.
it was life-changing for me. And I thought, that speaks to my experience.
It's a short poem, but it's a powerful poem.
Very.
Do you know it?
Yes. Yeah.
Kick it.
Oh, it's been a while since I.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I
Because I was
know.
gonna do it myself. So I said maybe she remember because I don't. But it's a
like
short
the
poem, but it's a
pool players,
powerful poem.
7 at the Golden Shovel, We Real Cool, We Left School, something like We Jazz June,
Yeah.
We Die Soon.
Yeah.
Along
Powerful
those
poem.
lines. Yeah, very
Yeah.
short and powerful. So she was a huge influence on how I write poetry and just, learning about her and reading her works. That opened up a world to me and made me realize that poetry was for everyone,
Yes.
not just for the Shakespearean.
Yes, but for any and everyone.
Yeah. And poetry is a universal language, and I think sometimes people don't feel like that.
Why you think that? Why do you feel that poetry is universal language?
Because it's beautiful, and I think beauty is universal, and I think that the people get a lot of times they are intimidated by the imagery and sometimes the allegories and different.
But words are our
elements.
tools.
Yes.
That's what writers use.
Yes,
That's
very
the-
much
the
so.
tool. Now, is there a close correlation between, say, a poem and maybe a song lyric or essays? Is there? Well, I mean, they're different forms, but is there a correlation between those art forms for you?
I mean, I think I'm appreciative of all art, certainly, and I do know that you have many poets who've been inspired by songs, been inspired
Song
by
lyrics,
portraits,
Yes.
So I mean, I do appreciate that, but nothing in particular. You know, I've written poems about songs. But,
Oh, really?
Yeah, but not
About songs?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Now, how does that work?
Well, I wrote
Inspired by a song?
Yeah, I wrote a poem called '70s Groove. And the poem was about the music of the 70s, but it was
wow.
also about growing up in the 70s with children who didn't look like me. But it didn't make a difference because we were all kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, we were, one of the lines is, you know, was proud of Aretha's RESP. ETC.
Respect.
Yeah,
I'm reading the book right now. I mean, actually, I'm reading her book right now called Respect. Woo, what a book it is. See, because we get to see people who are celebrities, and we love their music. We go to the concerts, you know, and we feel like we know them. Read the book Respect.
Yeah,
I'll tell
and
you,
then
great
you
book
realize,
though.
wow.
Yes. See, I mean, there's another personality behind all that great music you hear. But we just hear that part, the artistic part. But it's a great book, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I just finished Michelle Obama's Becoming, so I'll check that out. That'll be my next read.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, you finished already?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm listening.
excellent.
I'm listening to
Excellent
the audiobook right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
It's a difference when you listen to an audiobook as opposed to reading. I guess you use a different part of your mind or something. I don't know, but it's a great listen.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then I also have the book. I'm gonna go back and read the book after I finish listening to
I'll
it.
have to try the audio again. I drift when I listen to audio.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I try not to, but you know,
That's the Gemini in you.
someone
Focus.
told me, they said, you know, try it in your car.
Yeah, when you're driving.
Because if I'm
Yes.
at home and I'm just listening, I drift. But if I'm reading, I don't. You know, I stay focused.
Oh,
So,
wow, that's
so,
interesting.
yeah.
Most of the time when I listen to it, I'm in the car. Yeah, it's just beautiful. But we talk about poetry. We haven't read any poetry. So let's go on and spit something. Whatever you might want to share.
All right,
And then of
well-
course we want to know the story behind it.
Sure.
Always.
Sure. So a little while ago when I moved to Southeast in 2015 and I wrote an essay about it.
Now, where you originally from?
Originally, well, Army brat.
Oh, you were Army. Oh, you from everywhere.
So I was born in Washington State and
Okay.
I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, Jersey girl.
Yeah, Neptune, New Jersey.
Whitney. I'll always love you.
Yeah, Neptune, New Jersey, and then I lived in Lexington, Kentucky for a long time, and then I moved to Silver Spring with my sister, and then I moved to DC in 2015.
So you kind of grew up everywhere.
Yeah,
And that's
I
a different
did.
perspective
Yeah.
too, though. And I'm sure it has the perspective on what you write and how you write as well.
Yes, well, my writing has changed a lot over the years, very much so, in style and content and everything like that.
Growth,
And my approach to writing, I want to be very socially aware of what it is that I'm talking about. And I think
Yes.
it's just so important, you know, specifically for, you know, I'm just committed to the cause of our people, to the environment, to sustainability, to all of those sort of things.
You know, that's beautiful before you said it, before we get to the point, because I always like you, I always like to be socially conscious. I always like to be in tune to whatever's happening in the culture at the time, no matter what it is. And people say, you write about all kinds of stuff. Yes, I do. But I have friends who are poets. Some of them write religious poems. Some of them write about certain things. And that's all good.
Right.
I just happen to, and I read 3-4 newspapers every day, so I'm always socially conscious of what's happening in the atmosphere, what's happening in the culture all the time. So one minute I can talk about Chocolate City, Canada. The next minute I might be talking about Do It for the Children. Next minute I may be talking about Reed. I may be talking about Trump.
Right.
You know, I talk about anything.
Right.
And everything.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what I mean by being universal, you
Yes.
know, as far as poetry is concerned, because it, you know, a lot of times artists get pigeonholed.
Yes.
And I just think that can be a two-edged sword. You know,
Yes, you don't want
it
that.
can be to your advantage, but it can also be to your disadvantage, because it's like, well, why are you doing something different? This is what you've always done. But it can at the same time establish your brand. So, you know,
Yes.
it has to kind of be a balance, you know. So,
Yeah. Let's share.
yeah. Okay, so so this particular piece is called "To the African Locked Inside the American," and just thinking about Black History Month, so I decided
come
to
on with
start
it
off
now.
with this. I know the African stood on the sands of his land and he breathed freedom once. He resonates in the drum beats of my heart. He kissed my skin with mahogany and wrapped my head in lamb's wool. In this past era, tribal warriors weren't led sheep-like to the slaughter. They lived in the land of the elephants and battled the mighty lion. Watched the baobab sentry silhouette, against the fiery beauty of glistening sunset. The red stain of slavery flowed freely from this continent as sisters and daughters were caught with clawing hands on bending knees. From greed and cruelty their eyes did bleed. Ships of crying cage cargo, the trailing human feast as marine animals and sharks' taste of men turned to beasts. They were squeezed through the foul watery canal of this middle passage that birthed them into a new existence of being less than a child of Adam. Taken through the ocean's tumultuous swell, this middle passage, they are saturated in digestive waste, emptied onto a strange land to begin their sentence in hell. The forced migration of my ancestors and kin, survivors of capture in a system of sin. The unending backbreaking work, the torture and experimentation, the murder, the mutilation reduced peoples of many cultures into one population. Branded and labeled by the color of their skin, their history lost and forgotten. Yet these stolen tribes adapted and even thrived, sung songs of meaning in harsh cotton fields. To the Underground Railroad is where some would steal, slipping away under the cover of night. With fear in step beside them they boldly took flight, risking death and capture again. One after one silent protester opened their homes to the most hated of men. The Underground Railroad wasn't under at all, but an upper ground of morality, the road to fairness and justice, an introduction to the end of this peculiar bondage. The uncivil civil war between brothers fighting north and south divided the United States. Angry men took up arms, focused on their convictions, eyes full of ideals. They killed and fought and battled in grave and dying fields. Descendants of kings stood tall, speaking their new language, ready to be equal in the reconstructing of America. Given a voting voice and many citizen rights, our forefathers flourished, but evil men devised another plan for the African locked inside the American on strange and bitter land. Separate but equal Jim Crow laws were hastily passed. Newly freed compatriots felt betrayal and backlash. Hooded night riders appeared, hanging and lynching. For everyone they murdered, for more was what they were wishing. The burnings, castrations, and skinning alive to elk out and annihilate this race of humankind. These earthbound souls are something to behold, even if the visage appears marred and the eyes are too old. A slow swelling of pressure began to accumulate each day, and weeks turn into months and night into day. Integration was on the way, coloreds only and whites only no more. Civil rights was making way an open door. The youth rose up ready to fight. A new generation of brothers and sisters joined the great plight. For every celebration of freedom, we must search deeper for the meaning. As integration stripped away our community and culture, on one another we begin to pray. For the habits imposed on us have left their mark. Now we hurt and kill without any guilt or thought. Sophisticated prejudice has spawned out of the old. The war of propaganda moves across the airways as the language of indifference slowly poisons. But new warriors are emerging with clear eyes undeceived. They seem small in number, but small is all we need, for we continue to flourish as evil men have devised another plan for the African locked inside the American on strange and bitter land.
Wow. What engendered that piece? Oh, that was deep, sister. I was with you. Wow. But it's also a history piece as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what brought that about? What were you thinking that made you write a piece
well,
like that?
I was thinking about a lot of different things. I think one of the big things I was thinking about was how we are two people, how we appear when we get together, and how we are in corporate America. How we are, so we have to divide ourselves to be acceptable, and it's like we lock that African, that we lock that beautiful part of ourself that is regarded as some kind of way odd inside of ourselves.
You know, that's interesting you said it, because the great E.B. Du Bois said that as African Americans, we always had to have a double consciousness. And I see that piece, and part of what you're saying is right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
Now, when did you write that piece?
I must have wrote that piece maybe about 5 years ago. I'm thinking
Really?
something like that. Yeah,
You was
it's
about
a little
14.
Okay. I'll
About
go
5
with
years
that.
ago. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to share a piece simply entitled, "What Color Was Jesus?"
Okay.
I know some folk will say, well, what does it matter? Well, if it didn't matter, then why'd they change the image of Jesus when they knew what color he was, and then what the book said? What color was Jesus? Let the Spirit of truth color you higher. In his divine holiness, Jesus was a black Messiah. If the naked truth is the living light, there ain't no way Jesus could have been white. Mother Mary was a sister later. Jesus was a brother man. Now, what color was Jesus? Tell me if you think you can. What color was Jesus? Jesus was a black man. Michelangelo changed the world with a lovable white lie, and our sacred slice of light was pie in the sky. But a whitewashed truth is like no truth at all, for truth crushed to earth will always stand tall. Mother Mary was a sister later. Jesus was a brother man. Now, what color was Jesus? Tell me if you think you can. Jesus was a black man. Without self-knowledge, self-love, and mutual trust, everybody seems to know who we are except us. The fact that Jesus was black is simply wholly taboo, but the truth is on its way and too long overdue. What color was Jesus? What color was Jesus? Jesus was a black man.
All right.
I know some folks they're watching this saying, really? Better check your history. Check the book. The book tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I write about what I feel. You know, how do you write? Do you need to be in a special place, on the bus, in the park, or it just hits you any and everywhere?
It hits me any and everywhere all the time, and sometimes it's annoying because if I don't write it right then and there, I always have something. I use my phone now, thank goodness for modern technology,
Yes.
because sometimes I'm in my
Notes
car
on your phone.
and I can just, I can record it.
Yeah. Oh, yes,
You
right,
know what
of
I
course.
mean?
Yes,
I can
I do
just
that too.
record
Yeah.
whatever it is that I'm thinking, as opposed to trying to pull over somewhere and write it down or something like that. And so that's very helpful.
And Gemini's always thinking.
Yes, we are.
Some of that stuff they need to stop thinking. But anyway.
I don't know about that. Okay. So
That's the beauty of how it works through you as an individual, as a poet, as an educator. You know, regardless of your sign, but God gives gifts to whomever He wants to. But it works the way. Well, you know, mutes. The Greeks used to say when the mutes come down on you.
Yeah, the
when that
mutes.
spirit come down on you.
Yeah.
You could be anywhere.
Yeah.
If you're anytime, any place. Sometimes it's I have to pull over to the side of the road and know something to write down. You know, it's
I mean,
funny
it
how it
does.
works.
I mean, it might sound a little melodramatic or whatever, but it does feel like a divine experience. Because if I don't write it or
Are you afraid you'll lose
record
it?
Well, I can't recapture it like
Okay.
that way.
Right, in that
I'm talking
moment.
about that
Yes.
the word. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
Because
know.
a
I feel it.
misplace that in, you know, keep her, he. It makes a difference to how the poem sounds.
How it
And if
flows,
you miss it, it's like you can't get it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Like, so you got to capture it. It's almost like somebody taking a snapshot without camera. You know, nowadays, you know, back in the day, we had those throwaway cameras,
You
and you
talking
take
about
a snap.
the Polaroid?
Yeah, the Polaroids. You know, you had to take a snapshot, and you freeze time. And writing a poem is like a snapshot in time. Like you're saying about the feeling,
Yeah.
you have to capture that feeling.
Yeah, you do. You
You have
really
to capture
do.
it while it's there.
Yeah.
It may never come again.
Right. Yeah.
And if it does, it might not come with the same fervor and passion that you had during that moment. You know,
Yeah.
people who write know what I'm saying, and it's
Yeah.
not. I'm sure it's not just.
Well, I think people who just appreciate passion,
Mm-hmm.
because you can be an excellent technical writer, you
Yes.
know, and craft a piece of you know, a work of poetry or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no passion, if there's no light,
Yes.
or it,
That's
it
where the
really
passion is,
makes
in
a
the light.
difference.
Yes.
And, you know, and that's what a person hears sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is they hear that something, and that something is the passion of the poetry. It's the inspiration. You know what I'm saying?
I believe that poetry is meant to be read aloud. You know,
Yeah.
it's something that when you go to a reading, or when I read a poem out loud, or I hear somebody reciting a poem out loud, it's a certain kind of feeling you get from it, as opposed to when I read it myself.
I think.
And then both are great.
Yeah,
but when you feel it different.
I think I feel both. You know,
Well,
I
yeah,
can
I feel both.
appreciate.
Yeah, both.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard some poet. You know how some of us are.
Yeah.
We're a poet. You know.
Yeah.
And so it's like I can read it. It's not a problem.
Right.
Because they really don't want to read.
Yeah, well, it comes out when you hear
Yeah.
them. They get up and
Yeah.
read. I don't really want to do this, and it comes out in the reading.
But I mean, they can be an excellent poet, though.
Yeah, they could be.
Yeah.
Now,
so-
a perfect example. Now, you know that Langston Hughes was a great monumental poet. And from what I understand, he didn't read his work very well.
Yeah.
But he sure felt it, and
Yeah.
he sure had the ability to write it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this recording by Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis doing Langston Hughes. Oh, man, what? They are masters at it.
Yeah.
They brought those words on the paper alive, and you feel it.
Exactly.
They had the voices. Of course, they were actors too, and that's not to say that every poet needs to be an actor, but it's something about that they brought that alive when
Well,
you read
it's a dual craft. You know, people say poet and spoken word artist, and sometimes they don't realize
What's the
that's two
difference?
different things. Well, I mean, a poet is someone who actually writes poetry.
Yes.
But a spoken word artist is someone who has the capability to recite it. They have
And
the capability to speak it. They bring that to
Something
life.
to it, yeah.
And that in and of itself
Yeah.
is a craft. But then you have some
that's
people
true.
who are spoken word artists, but they want to do other people's work because they're not really much of a poet.
Oh,
You know
wow,
what I'm
I
saying?
never thought about it like that.
So yeah, so I mean, you have some just excellence,
Mm-hmm.
and I think both of them are very powerful. Now, when you have
Still
the
are.
combination where you have a poet who is a spoken word artist,
Yes.
wow,
That's something else.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
I've never called myself a spoken word artist. I just do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been into like slams or anything like that, and I'm not against it. I just never done it. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I appreciate it because
Yeah.
it's part of the art form. I love young
Yeah.
people who can slam and
Right.
who can what do you call it, right off the top of your head when you do the
Improv.
when we do the improv. I love
Yeah.
young people who can do that. Man,
Yeah.
I know some young people can improv. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It really is, and that's why I'm saying, you know, that capability.
To do that,
I don't think
yeah.
one knocks the other.
No,
you know,
no.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can
all,
appreciate
you know,
all of it, yes.
Because I know some people, you know, they're like one way or the other, but
Doesn't
I think
have to
I think it should all be appreciated.
Yeah, it is indeed. What? Come on with me now.
So I have the Doll Queen. So I wrote this. Was it last year or the year before?
Okay.
But I wrote this piece. So there's a lady who talked about African American dolls.
Okay.
Camilla Bryce Laporte. I think I'm saying her name right. And she hand creates these beautiful
Oh, really?
African American dolls.
Wow, by
And
hand.
yeah. She makes the outfits and everything. Just simply gorgeous work she does. And so I wrote a piece called The Doll Queens because I grew up with little white dolls. That
Okay.
They
And
didn't really have, when I was growing up, there weren't really black dolls.
Really? There was no black Cabbage Patch?
No.
You remember the Cabbage Patch?
I'm pre-Cabbage Patch.
Oh, you Cabbage Patch. I'm about Cabbage Patch out of it.
Yeah.
They were ugly dolls. Yeah, there were some ugly dolls. But they were very popular. Had the little birth certificate and everything.
Yeah.
I looked at the little
yeah.
dolls. So ugly. I said, this doll shouldn't have been born.
No, I had the Barbie doll that was so hard
Oh,
you
yeah.
could use it as a weapon. You remember
Doll.
those? The ones they used to be really hard.
Well, yeah, but I never played with dolls.
Well, maybe your
I know they were
sister
really
or
hard. I know what you're
cousin
saying.
or
Let's
something
mess with
like
it.
that.
Yeah, they were really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the kind of kid. My sister used to have all because I had 7 sisters. They used to have these little dolls growing up, you know.
Your mom.
And I was. I used to take the head off and use it for a baseball. Me and my brothers. But anyway, let's talk about the dolls.
So I wrote this for that event called the Doll Queens.
Okay.
Black child with kinky hair, into blue Barbie eyes you stare. Her long straight tresses, small features, and tiny lines were burned and seared into your vulnerable mind. Black beauty disappeared from your face as brown girls given white dolls embrace self-hate. Hopeful eyes cry because of what is idolized, the white face and pale skin. Is the black body now a stigma like sin? Wide-eyed white dolls unblinking cold stare for black children they don't like or particularly care. Black mothers did not know what these dolls were thinking, but their anger was growing and confidence shrinking. We are chilled to our very core of how a concept war can root into a child's mind through an object of play. We have become blind. Shaky hands imitate what they see. When they see nothing, they feel broken dreams. What a big nose you have, not like Snow White, pale, delicate, and sad. How your big lips protrude. Little Red Riding Hood is afraid to move. A doll in the likeness of Harriet Tubman, although her story is legendary, is not the cute baby doll meal, edible to American consumer appeal. She is not pretty enough to be replicated. The corrupt do not want integrity initiated in the impressionable hearts of young girls. We want females firmly rooted in the superficial world. But ancient traditions demand respect. Across the waters they have been misplaced. But now the doll queens resurrect, healing as they ascend to their rightful state. So give me my doll of brown skin and curly black hair, with full lips and beautiful clothes to wear. Little brown girls have reappeared, the mirror image no longer feared, for they are given a place to dream, to understand what love and adoration means. As they bestow that on themselves, to them they are precious moments, building a mental arsenal of wealth. The doll queens create representations of the hands that made them. These African American dolls are given great beauty to grace them. Everything in this society pushes ugly and black. Now brown children have a beautiful doll to hug them back. Into the circle of knowledge they are protected. See the mirror image of the doll queen reflected?
Wow, how beautiful. You know what? You are what you think. To rise and shine and find the missing link, you must be mindful of the thoughts you think. If you think your sense of self is dull and numb, just remember, whatever you think, you become. When you are one with the all-knowing mind, you can turn failure into success every time. Listen to the inner voice, think right, and just be still, and you can accomplish what you will. But take heed to the seed that you cultivate, for what you think and feel, you create. To know the life force and the power divine, the kingdom of heaven is in the garden of the mind. If food for thought is but food for the soul, the infinite spirit of wisdom will always make you whole. For to rise and shine and find the missing link, you must be mindful of the thoughts you think. Sister, that was such a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Wow, what were you thinking? Where did the idea come from? To write about dolls and how we see dolls.
Well, she had written, so with her and I had gotten in contact.
And give me the title again.
The Doll Queens.
Doll Queen.
And so
What a title.
she had, in this book actually, read my book, and there's a poem in here.
Yeah, let's talk about the book, because we didn't talk the book.
Sure.
book yet.
There's the poem in here that the first one that I just read, The African Locked Inside the American.
Okay.
And so she wanted me to read that at her event. And so when I saw her dolls, and she started talking to me about them, and then I found out there was this community of African American doll makers, and I saw how beautiful they were.
Is it like an
inspired
association?
The poem. I
Not-
don't think
not
it is.
organized in that sense.
I don't think like that, but they certainly are there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
and the clothes and just everything that she had made. And so it just it inspired. And I started thinking about how I didn't have any, I didn't have any black dolls to play with, and the unconscious impact that has on a young girl,
It's interesting because I don't know if I'd ever thought about to write a poem about dolls. I mean, you never know what might cross your mind.
Well, you didn't play
Come to
with
the
them,
experience.
so.
Well, yeah, I played with them. So, you're right about that. So I would have got that deep into the dolls. I just told you I used to pull the head off
about
of
trucks.
yeah, or something like that. But yeah, but no, that's beautiful because I've never seen or heard a poem like that before. That is so unique.
Thank you.
Yeah, and now that's in the book. Let's talk about the book.
No, actually, the Doll Queens isn't. It's the African locked inside the American. So this this book of poems,
entitled?
It is Poems of Love and Violence in Between Life and Death, second edition. The first edition I did, it was in black and white.
Oh,
And
okay.
the second one was in color. So I had photography in here. I knew I had the vision for this book, and I knew exactly everything that I wanted it to look like.
So how did the book come about?
It came about because I have books in me that I have to get out, and so
They say everybody has at least one.
yeah. Well, I have more, and so
I know you-
and so
I know that's
right. So I thought about life and death, and I thought about what was in between it most for me, and it was love and violence.
And there's also a
Those
dash.
And so that's true. So I did poems on each subject. So the first subject are poems on love. The
Okay.
second one is violence. The next one is life, and the last section is death. And
Wow.
I decided to self-publish because I didn't want the integrity of my poems or how I wanted the book changed. Because there is, a lot of times people say, oh, self-publish or publisher. There's benefits to both,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And I think sometimes
You have to weigh the pros and cons.
exactly, exactly. And I know sometimes people knock self-publishing, but I
Yeah,
do
they do.
think that self-publishing has quite a bit of validity, and I'm quite happy.
Well, it's come a
with
long
my
ways,
book.
too, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have.
So you always self-publish your books?
Well, I don't know if I'm always going to.
Yeah.
I've certainly, have poems in anthologies and newspapers, different articles, things like that. But for right now, that's what's working for me.
Well, I tell young people all the time. I tell folk who just started. I said, well, first do a chat book. Just do a small chat
Yeah.
book first. I run to people. They want to go all out. If you've never done it before, kind of learn what you're doing, and
Yeah.
then do a chat book of maybe 25 poems.
Yeah.
You know?
I think sometimes people are under the impression, ta-da, I wrote the book, and it's going to get published in a week or a month or something. It could be years.
It can be years.
Before your
It could be
work.
never.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It could get shelved.
Yeah.
And so I've talked to people who, they were like, oh, I'm going to get published, but then they're like in 2025. So their book is up. And, they have this deal with the publisher or whatever because, I mean, with a few exceptions, poetry is not a bestseller.
No, but that's our job to make it bestseller.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Right.
Yeah, so I've always self-published, and not that I started out wanting to or anything as a young person coming up. I couldn't get anybody to publish me. Big publishers, I had a stack of rejection, notes like that. I mean, so
All of us do.
And one day
Anybody
all of us
writes.
do. So one day I just said to myself, I'm going to do what I do, regardless of any publisher in the world. So I started Queen's Palace Press
Oh,
myself,
you started
and that's
a press.
yes.
Okay.
I started
You
Queen's
went
Palace
big.
Publishers anyway. We put it that way, and that was more than 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Queen's Palace,
congratulations.
and so I published my own books, my own CDs, my own everything, because I had to,
Right.
and I wasn't going to let them dictate to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they said. It's what you wanted to do as an independent artist, an independent publisher
Yeah.
as well. Also, I'm a songwriter as well. I've been writing songs and poetry for many years.
I think a lot of people toss their dream for that away because they are looking for some sort of validation. and they're
You
looking,
don't need validation
some people
from
feel
anybody.
like they
Some
do,
people
though,
feel like they need, yeah.
and
No.
so to push forward means that you have a certain amount of belief in what it is that you have to say.
You have to. You have to have thick skin.
Yeah, and you have a certain amount of confidence, and you have a certain amount of love for sharing. And it's like, because it's wonderful when other people appreciate what it
you
is
do,
that.
But a lot of times poets, they may be the greatest poet in the world, but a lot of times poets are always the best people to promote their own work in terms of marketing and that kind of stuff.
They are, or they aren't.
They aren't a lot of times.
That's right.
Yeah. No, they're not.
They're not.
They're not. But I've always been on the entrepreneurial side. So I've had books, and then I had these broadsides, and of course I do the astrological poems and the beautiful broadsides. I've done business with, I've had my poetry in stores for years.
Oh, people push me all the time.
Really? Yes.
Yeah.
And
they have to
Yes.
mark it, push it out,
Push it,
say
yes.
something, and I'm like,
Yeah, so
"Ugh."
I've always published these beautiful broadsides. They're laminated on both sides.
Very nice.
Beautiful artwork, and I've been selling them for years. I've
Wow.
done business with Kent Mill Records and a lot of stores, 7-Elevens, dollar stores, gift shops. I even been in some liquor stores. I was high on my business, girl. No, but you have to. You have to. But everybody don't have that.
Right,
So I've
they
always
don't.
had the entrepreneurial spirit. Been to hair
Very
salons and sell poetry, speaking engagements. I've been in Walden Books, did all of that for years. Yeah, because I had to.
Yeah.
And had
Well, that'll be inspirational to people,
Yes.
because I know, like, for myself, it's a constant push.
Yes.
I don't like it. I don't. I like the writing part of it.
Yes.
Creating the art. But I certainly.
Yeah, that's the other part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done it for years. Yeah.
Very good.
But because sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to believe in yourself, and you
Yeah.
got to have a thick skin. Because
Yeah.
knowing folk who look like you and me, they're like, look at you. I know, but it's all right because it's not personal. And I just simply say, some will, some won't. So what? Move
Right.
on.
Right.
Do what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because I love the art form. You gotta love it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, to be a poet, you have to love.
You have to
poetry.
love it because not you will
stay-
starve to death. And I don't mean to be negative, but it's the truth.
Starving
You
artist.
starving artist.
That
That-
certainly is.
yeah,
that
you know.
certainly is true. That
Yes.
certainly is
mhm.
a thing.
Now you got a lot of poems in the book. We need to hear some more. And then, we need to talk about the anthology also.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the anthology now.
Okay, you want to talk
And-
about that?
yes,
All right,
and how that came about.
So this is called Moving Beyond Mars, A Voice for Victim and Survivors of Abuse. And it's published
Okay.
by Red Dashboard Publications. So this
Abuse.
anthology is available at their site. So what happened was we were talking about on Facebook, I was in a discussion and we were kind of talking about Me Too, and so I just I was just so aggravated by the whole thing, because
Yes.
I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, and so
Oh, wow.
I wrote this this short piece, and a publisher associate of mine saw it, and she said, you should send this to these people, and I did, and along with an essay, and they published it.
Oh, wow.
That's how it happened. It was a
Can you
face-
share that piece?
Sure. So it's called "Stop the Abuse. We wake to wrath. Women are righteously raging." So it's in all caps, and I just wanted to be, because it was like this whole narrative with the Me Too movement is, what about the men? And I was like, I thought this was a movement about survivors,
Male or
for
female?
survivors, to support survivors, which it initially was, and then people said, well, there's more victims than women, and so it's like, that is very true, and it's very
You don't hear
powerful.
that much, though.
So the movement needs to be, so
Expand
movements
it.
begin not in perfection.
Well, yeah.
They grow,
Yes.
So you have this whole Me Too, thing started with the hashtag with Alyssa Milano, and then she goes back and finds out about Tarana Burke, that Tarana Burke originally had talked about this and talked about if you've been, or if you're a survivor of sexual
Abuse.
abuse, just say Me Too. So the Me Too movement was about that, was about survivors supporting survivors. And you have all these people changing the narrative or trying to change the narrative,
yeah.
or piggyback on,
Or make it less inclusive.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and so people who recognize the purity of the reason why the Me Too movement exists have to stay focused on that, and be
Yes.
very inclusive to men, to be very inclusive to children, because
Yes.
there are horrible stories of
Horror
men,
stories.
yes, men
Yes.
being but I'm talking about the victims. I'm not talking about someone being accused, and that's bad too.
Of course.
But that's a whole nother
Yeah, that's another one.
narrative that is running over top of
The victims.
right. So that's why I said in cap, stop the abuse. We wake to wrath. Women are righteously raging. Over centuries and decades, our tongues have been silenced, cut off, stuffed, and forced, but now we come forth with the wrath of 1,000 dead virgins who haunt every single corner of madness to make judgment a fiery light. Abusers run to unfamiliar places they cannot find their footing. All even ground sinks into quicksand. Righteous eyes burn through swamps and fogs. Voices cry for justice, God.
Wow. Behind closed doors. I know you would not believe a single word if the walls behind closed doors could tell you all they've seen and heard. Who would have ever thought Mr. and Mrs. Do-Right had something shady going on? Who would have ever thought such a perfect combination could turn out so wrong? For this, with all my heart, I truly believe any man who beats and abuses a woman don't deserve to breathe. Somewhere behind closed doors on the other side of the wall, somebody's fussing and fighting, and it don't make no sense at all. So if the walls behind closed doors could tell you all they've seen and heard, I wonder what they'd say. Because if this is what they call love, there just ain't no way. After breathtaking screams and a soul-searching silence that chilled me to the core, I dialed 911 because I just couldn't take it anymore. Another sleepless night, and the best of intimate strangers are up and at it again. And after a maze of mind games, the only thing left is the beginning of the end. On the outside, some folk live a picture-perfect dream, but somehow on the inside, things ain't always what they seem. Somewhere beyond the love of a friend and an intimate fool, somebody forgot to live up to the essence of the golden rule. For this, with all my heart, I truly believe anyone who beats and abuses a woman don't deserve to breathe.
Wow.
Behind closed doors.
That's excellent. Very good. Yeah, I think that
Thank
that
you.
is a huge problem in our society. And what it does is it eats away and just really,
So painful.
yeah, it's painful, but it eats away at the fabric of our society. And it's like, okay, are we evolving for good? Are we de-evolving? You know,
Wow.
for and so when you have people, when you have hundreds of thousands of people who are living their life and making trauma-based decisions because they haven't got help,
Yes.
they have unresolved trauma. They so many people even today who have suffered some sort of mental, physical, sexual abuse have not been properly treated.
And it seems like it's coming out more and more every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's good that it found. I never
Yes.
thought I would see a time where so many survivors would speak up.
Yes.
Back in the day,
I know, it was
that
hush,
was
hush.
the stuff that you didn't talk about.
It was behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
very, very powerful. And it stayed like that. But what it did was you had people who were moving forward, walking wounded, traumatized, having children, raising children, making trauma-based decisions. This affects
All human relationships. Yes.
yes, yes, and it's so to me fundamental. People say, "What in the hell is wrong with the world?" That is wrong.
Yeah,
What's
wrong with the
That's a
world, yeah.
big reason, is because you have people who abuse other people, and people who have been abused think,
Themselves.
I won't grow up to be an abuser, but because they've been socialized that way, that's exactly what they grew up to be.
Wow.
And they
Believe
perpetuate
that,
this.
yes.
And it's behind closed doors. So you have something on the outward that looks very, very normal.
Well, I'm glad the closet door is open now.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
you
Let
know,
them
and
all
especially
open.
in terms of that. You know?
Yes, yeah. And you have movements, you have people who are just coming out of the woodwork. You have organizations popping up. And that's why I just think it's so important and so key to remain focused on the good that it can do. These
Wow.
people can get help. You know what I'm saying? These people for the first time can say, hey, maybe I'm kind of making some off decisions based on trauma. Maybe my relating to a man or my relating to a woman is not really based on normal type of emotions, but it's something inside where I was hurt. You know what I'm saying? People always talk about baggage and they make jokes, but that's very, very
You know,
real.
that brings me to that song by Erykah Badu, Bag Lady. No, really, because when I think about it, when I first heard the song,
Yes.
I didn't quite understand. The time I read the lyrics, I was like, oh, wow.
when I
It's like a light went on in my head.
When I first heard this song, I said, wow, she's spot on.
Yeah, but at first I was just, you grew into the music, and then, because I'm a word person, then I said, oh, let me Google the lyrics of this song. And oh man, it's like a light came on my head. People with baggage, all kinds of baggage. And you're talking about a Gucci bag.
Yeah, no.
All kinds of baggage.
No,
Brown bag,
it's
plastic
a
bag.
big old black trash
Yeah.
bag.
And she got a lot of other bags inside of that trash bag.
Yeah, I
You better
wanna
believe it.
garbage
And it's a
bag.
beautiful song. And then again, that brings me back to poetry and song lyric and the power of the spoken word, the written word as well.
Yes.
There's a lot. There's so much. That's the power of poetry. That's the power of a very powerful song lyric, speaking, communicating
Absolutely.
to us.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
I never take spoken word. I never take poetry. I never take the art.
And
of
our
it for
words
granted.
are powerful.
Yes.
So powerful. I always just thought one of the worst things that I've always heard over the years was sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And it's like
Untrue.
words will tear
They will hurt you.
apart.
They certainly will.
That is not.
It's not true.
That
It's
is
something we
not
say
the-
as kids.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, you talk about my mom, we used to play the dozen. Yeah, the words hurt. I didn't let you know how much they hurt. But when we playing the dozens, come as a kid, I'd come back at you, though.
Yeah. And now you have kids killing themselves over words.
Yes, that's
And
true.
nobody's put a hand on them.
That's interesting because, like I was just saying, we would do this as kids coming. Everybody did it. Nobody killed anybody. Or nobody was killing themselves. It was just as young people coming up. We played the dozens. We call it joning.
Yeah.
That was a sport. Everybody did it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
today it's a completely different world.
Yeah. I mean, that kids can't handle that.
No, they can't handle it.
Yeah, they
No.
can't.
Not
And I
nowadays.
mean, and not to say that the kids who did it,
Grown-ups can't handle it nowadays.
We're handling it.
Look at Facebook. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't handle all that.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's a
Different
different
time.
set
Yeah.
of pressures.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's always. I mean, this is
Yes.
it's like an
Yeah.
appendage. Because
It
people
is.
will go, "Where's my phone?" They'll freak out, including
right.
me, and so
I feel incomplete. Oh, start panic. I ain't got my phone.
But when you went to school, you went home and it stopped. The kids
Yes.
weren't
Well.
there anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the technology also has a lot
So-
to do with it.
But that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
now the kids come right in your bedroom with you,
That's true.
and they're on Snapchat and they're on
Everything
Instagram
else.
and and they're texting.
FB and all that,
And
yeah.
it's like, I can't get away from this.
Yeah.
There's no
You know,
break.
That's why I sometimes tell friends, let's talk, not text.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that sometimes. Because it doesn't take the place of talking. It may be convenient and it's fast.
Right.
But it doesn't take the place of communicating.
Yeah.
I know we're getting off to something else. But no, but it's still at the same time, it's all related.
Yeah,
Because
it is.
poets, we write about any and everything.
Absolutely.
I wrote a poem about cell phones years ago when people first started getting cell phones. I was writing about it then because I saw it was like the communication connection was being severed.
One of the best
In some
pieces
ways.
I heard was I don't want to say his name wrong, but it's Leonard. I want to say it's Tishingi or something like
Okay.
that. But he's originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay.
And I did not know that in all cell phones there's this little chip, and the metal to get that chip is apparently, I guess, like in these caves or somewhere that they have to dig in the
Cobalt.
Congo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and these children are in forced labor,
Really?
digging
Wow.
with bare hands in these little bitty holes. This guy took
That's deep.
how we listen and those children and put that together in
Oh,
a
man, I
piece
love to hear that.
was
Ooh,
yes.
the power.
It made you want to go, I'm not going to use my cell phone anymore.
Wow.
Because of,
Brenda, you got to share that with me. I got to find that. Is it online?
Yeah, I think I have it. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Definitely. So
That's something, man. We talked about history and Black history, and the power of if it wasn't for what comes out of Mother Africa, we wouldn't have the cell phones and a whole lot of technology.
Oh my gosh, yes.
A whole lot of technology.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't be no GPS.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be no phone.
Yeah.
We'd be still
Yeah.
reading maps.
Yeah.
You
well,
know.
Well, this is Black Africa too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I want you to share another piece of your own choice.
So this is I call it signature spoken word piece. It's called A Poet Without Voice. And I wrote this when I feel like I found my voice. And I continue to swallow the unnatural truths, hating the sound of my own vocalization, swallowing the European image of beauty, despising African nations, swallowing mental slavery imposed by the media hypnotic, signal beeping in my home every day. I swallowed tuning into the family ideals, no longer recognizing reality TV was not real. But I just stood there, an unblinking idiot, captivated and exposed. Do you like me? I swallowed. I know you don't, so I won't ask. So my voice won't sound like the reedy thread of a learning guitar player who has no skill. But I will hide and pretend to be the laughing friend, the crazy jokester who is the life of the party. For my struggle is to have the courage to speak, to say what is relevant, to regurgitate my meat. Have you ever spoken steak? Said something so powerful you made another person shake? You and them together experience the power of knowledge and understand. That is some divine-ish man. And I continue to swallow. You can't swallow and speak at the same time. Find me the lyric inside of the rhyme. I don't trust the sound of my own voice, for I have lied for many years, lied in pain and weakness and fear that my non-artificial self would be rejected. So I piled on layers of protection and forgot the essence that is me until I discovered the power of poetry and began the mountain climb on my trekking way to find closing my mouth and not swallowing all of the time. The suffering of the naive will never end as long as corruption continues, my friend. And I continue to swallow. It was easier, more safe, it was comfortable and more familiar, but one day at the grocery store, I saw the bruised fruit crushed under the ripest choice and screamed in my heart, no more. Throwing up violently, I had to leave. I could not stop what was coming out of me. I wanted to die. I felt so sick inside, but for the first time, feeling vibrant and so alive. When my breath and beating subsides, I just want to share with you what I have gained, although you will still have your own pain. I am showing you all that I am, and if you don't like it, I completely understand, but I love me. Poet without voice.
Wow. Ooh, wow, sister. That is so beautiful. What that about?
Like I said, it just was kind
It
of
came
like,
to you.
it was like my journey, and like I said, starting as a closet poet, not writing poetry, but not wanting to,
Share.
yeah, I felt exposed because when I would
Almost
write,
like naked in the sense.
yeah, it's like a baby, and I'm like, here, what do you think of my baby? You know,
Wow.
that's how my
Right,
pieces
because it's a
are.
part. It's such
Yeah,
a part of
it
you.
is. It's a part, and you give it away, and you're like, well, what, you know? But what I had to realize was like, I can't. I do want you to appreciate it, but
Yes.
I can't be afraid if you don't.
Mhm.
You know, and so when I was able to reconcile that part of it, that's when I discovered that I love me
Wow.
and that I have a voice, and so that's.
Creativity has a mind of its own.
Yeah,
I have a baby.
and you swallow. You know, you swallow
yes,
a lot of stuff, and that's the thing that started it was, you know, we swallow so much, we just you know,
and
we
it's
just
like your
kinda-
baby, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, as a whole, society, we just put up with stuff. We just go
Yeah, that's
along
true.
with stuff. We just, you know, and then it's sometimes you're like, not today. I'm just not. I'm not going along to get along with that today.
That's so
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
I like to share this piece. It's my baby in a sense, and it's simply entitled "Pay Me My Money." Just so you pay me all that I'm due. If you have to rob Peter to pay Paul, that's on you. I'm coming from all ends just to make ends meet. Some overwork, I'm paid and dead on my feet. Don't want to rain on nobody's parade, but I want what I need and I'm trying to get paid. And if you don't have it, no, I won't try and understand. So pay me my money, all of my money, just as soon as you can. I can't help but to regret it because sometimes it's gone before I get it. And if I had what's due to me instead of just making do, I could pay Peter, Paul, and Mr. Bobo too. Don't mean to rain on nobody's parade, but I want what I need and I'm trying to get paid. And if you don't have it, no, I won't try and understand. So pay me my money, all of my money, just as soon as you can. Pay me my money. That's my reparations poem. We're talking Black history here. Where and how can we get in touch with you before we have to go?
So March 1st, I will be featured at Words Out Loud at Glen Echo Park at 7 o'clock on Friday. And my
used to go there as a kid.
Is, my book is on Amazon, and I'm also, what else do I have coming up? Well, I have something coming up tonight, but it's okay.
No, it's all good. And we thank you for coming and sharing. We've been talking with poet and author, and we didn't get a chance to talk about the workshop, but we'll talk about it next time you come back. So we've been talking with author and poet and spoken word author Brenda Bunting, and we thank you, sister, for coming and welcome.
Thank you,
We
Danny.
thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. We look forward to having you back. We're out of
Appreciate
time.
it.
I wish we had another hour. This was great.
I enjoyed it very much.
I'm
yes.
Danny Queen. This is Color Me Poetry. Until next time, Color Me Poetry. Peace.
I am the lifelong proof. Color me the poetry of nothing but the truth.
Color me a love child lost in the promised land. I am a poem for black hearts going to meet